Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to be firing up Linux Mint 22, the XFCE version, and we're going to install i3 Window Manager on it. I'm going to give that a try. It's something that I've been testing for a little over a week now, and I am really loving it. On my main machine right now at the moment, I am testing the i3, and on top of this Linux Mint 22. So there's a couple reasons I'm doing that. One, I just want to test i3 because I'm really liking it. But secondly, because I wanted to try it out on top of Linux Mint, because I remember using Mint a few years ago. It was just so stable that I never had an issue with it. And on this particular machine, I need really stable because of OBS Studio. I can run Arch, I can run Fedora, OpenSUSE, all kinds of distros, and really have no issues to speak of for months on end. But when it comes to a machine with OBS Studio, I constantly have issues, eventually, on every distro, except for Linux Mint. I've never had an issue with OBS Studio on Linux Mint, ever. And so I decided to go back to Mint on my production computer. Of course, my upstairs computer is still running Arco Linux with DK Window Manager, and then of course I have another computer with OpenSUSE. Those are kind of my favorites as well, but on the production computer, I am really loving Linux Mint 22, and I think this is just going to be something I might use long term. I wanted to install i3 on there partially for the challenge, just to see how practical it was, and I think it's pretty darn practical. So practical, in fact, that I wanted to share it with you. So I went ahead and loaded in a VM, and I got a fresh install of Linux Mint 22 XFCE here. I want to just get into this and set up i3 and show you how easy it is to do, and then we'll just kind of make it pop a little. And if you've never used i3 or Window Manager, you might even pick something up. So here we are. We are in the Linux Mint desktop, and you got the welcome screen here again. This is a fresh install. And let me just switch over to my other view here so I'm not so gigantic and imposing. And so here we have things like, this is our appearance. This is coming from our welcome screen. As you can see, the Linux Mint XFCE, I'm just changing it to the dark theme here just because I can. But all by itself, the XFCE right out of the box just really looks gorgeous. I'm really liking this version of Linux Mint. XFCE is probably one of my favorite floating Windows desktop anyway, even though I use primarily tiling window layouts now. And so the desktop I want to install today is the i3 tiling desktop and so forth. But as you can see here, we got all the apps that you would expect to see here on Linux Mint, including Hypnotics, LibreOffice, and of course a whole array of settings here tailored just for XFCE. And then of course our system settings that are all vital and quite well known to Linux Mint users. So I'm just going to go in here in the console, and let me just magnify that a bit, make it bigger and easier to see. And first of all, I think what I'm going to do is install Nala. Nala is kind of like apt 2.0, because here on Linux Mint, since it's Ubuntu based or Debian based, depending on the version you download, uses apt. So I'm going to use sudo apt install Nala. And so Nala is just a really nice version. I guess it's a version of apt, kind of probably like a fork of it or something. I'm not really sure, but I like it anyway. So I'm just going to install this just because I like it. And then after that, we'll install the i3 desktop and then play with it. And we'll configure and do some cool stuff to really rice it out a bit. So sudo nala install i3 is all we really got to do to get this going. Hit enter here, and then yes. Just enter again, because yes is the default. And look how gorgeous Nala is as it runs. So it is really a nice improvement on apt. That was pretty quick, and that's all there is to it. Now we got i3 installed, and it should be a very basic install. And I'm going to do a sudo nala install Polybar as well, because the base install of i3 doesn't have Polybar with it. It's kind of using an i3 bar, or maybe it's Lemon bar, I can't remember, but we want to use Polybar, so I'm just going to install that as well while I'm at it, and then we'll configure it to work with Polybar after that. So we'll just close the window now. I'll pop over here and we'll just log out, and hopefully we'll see an i3 screen here, or a choice in the drop down list. So I'll just hit the log out. And here we go. So here you can see the little XFCE icon. When you click on it, now you can see i3 as your choice. Even has a debug mode, which is cool. But here we chose i3, and then I'm just going to log in here, and we should see an i3 desktop. And there it is. And so it's asking us if we want to generate a file for the config, and I want to say yes, because I don't have my own config file. And then I'm going to use Win, the Win key or the super key, as our main key for mod 4, I think it is, in i3. So cool. And that was our welcome screen. And as you can see, we got a black background because there's no wallpaper app in there yet. And so I just opened up my terminal hitting super enter, and I'm just going to magnify that a bit, zoom it in. And so that way we can get started. So I'm going to vim the config file /i3 and /config. And we'll take a look at it. And there's no Vim on here. Oh well. I'll just install it real quick. So sudo nella install Vim. And authenticate. And we'll have Vim here in a flash. Nice. And just like that, we have Vim. So there we go. Now I'm just going to hit my up arrow key here. Now we're in our config file for i3, and a lot of stuff, and I'm just going to like scroll down to the bottom real quick, and here you can see where our bar is. This is loading in our i3 status bar, and that's what you see at the very bottom, where you got the status of our window manager, and you can see different things in there like the IP address and so forth, and our CPU and all that. But I'm just going to go ahead and just comment all that out. And instead of using that, we're going to use the Polybar. And so I'm going to do an exact underscore always. That means that we just want it to run one time. So if we rerun the script, it's not going to like load it twice. Otherwise, you got 2 Polybars showing up, and then 3 and 4 and so on every time you load the script. So the little comment there to remind me that this is to load the Polybar. So exact always Polybar hyphen, double hyphen, I mean, reload. And then we'll note our home variable for our home folder /.config /i3, I mean Polybar i3 slash that. Wait a minute. We're going to do the config file, so I'm going to put in a -c. And I'm also going to do our main bar -i3 section, then -c after that, not before. So then I'm going to come back up here and finish the line config.ini, I believe is the config file in the Polybar, and then a little ampersand there. So there we go. Yeah, so that should point to the main bar -i3 section of our config ini file. And I'm just going to save that, and then I'm going to press Super Shift C to reload. And no Polybar. Okay, I was thinking it would load the Polybar. I guess we don't have the config ini file there, maybe. Yes, actually, that's probably the case. We don't have Polybar installed, the configuration files, I think, is probably what's going on. So let me do an ls. Yeah, I don't see the Polybar folder, so I'm going to have to copy that over, actually. So I'm going to make a directory called Polybar. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to type in copy /usr. That's our user folder /share /doc /polybar /config. And it would help if I told it where to put it. That was kind of dumb. So I'm going to hit my up arrow key here again, and then space, and then I want it to copy it into my home folder /.config /polybar. And see how that works. And nothing. Okay, maybe it's config ini? That's probably what it is. So let me just arrow up and go back and attach a .ini on the end of that. And do it again, and nothing. What the heck? Okay, so I'm going to have to do a listing on our USR. So LSUSR share doc / Polybar. And, examples, okay. That's why the config.ini file is probably inside the examples folder. So let me put examples at the end of that. And there it is. Okay, cool. Excellent. And I hit my up arrow key again to get back to that. And here's my up arrow key again. I hit it a couple more times so I didn't have to retype this whole thing. So we're going to copy this, except I'm going to arrow back now. And after Polybar, I'm going to add in examples. Have that folder in there, / config.ini. And that should do the trick this time. So let's give it a try. It didn't complain. So we should have our config.ini in there. So I'm going to change to Polybar. List it, and there it is, config.ini. Much better. Excellent. So now let's edit this guy and take a look at it. But instead of doing that, I'm going to go launch Thunar, I think. So if I remember right, yeah, Super D will open my D menu, and then there's Thunar. So we'll jump in here. This will give you a more visual representation of the whole structure and everything that's going on. So we'll go to config, and then Polybar, and there's our config.ini for our Polybar. And let's open that up. And here we can see our fresh configuration file. In addition to that, I also want to go back to my config. I opened up another tab here, and I want to go in my i3 folder and also open in the text editor this config file for i3, because we want to modify this because I think something's not quite right here in the Polybar. So if I go down here, yeah, main bar i3. I'm going to take that out. I was thinking of my Arco Linux file and my Arco Linux install where I have Polybar for my DK desktop. There we go. That's better. And in the Arco Linux version, it's got a whole bunch of different sections, and one of them is the main bar i3. And for some reason, I had it in my head that it was in this one, but it's not. So removing that fixed it. Excellent. So there we are. Exec always, Polybar, _reload, -C, and then our path to the config.ini, which is the home variable / config Polybar config.ini. And a little ampersand in there to help the old execution of the file. Excellent. So back to where we were. Here's our Polybar, and it's got like our volume control, and I really love the fonts on here. Those are actually nicer than the one I have in my setup. I might actually copy those fonts. I like the color, and I like the font style and the size and everything. That's really cool. I just hit Super 3, and it took me over to another workspace, so that's working good. But what I want to do from here is I want to go down, and here we got modules left and modules right, and all these things correspond to what you're seeing up there in the Polybar right now. You got file system, pulse audio volume, the keyboard language, memory, and all that. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in modules -center, because I want to move my clock over to the center, and that's denoted by the date at the end and modules right. So I'm going to type in date and put date there, and then I'm going to come down here in modules right and take it out of there, and now it should disappear in the right hand corner, and now you see it in the center instead. So there's our clock up there in the center, and I like it there personally. For me, that's just comfortable. And then modules right, I'm just going to comment that out, and what I want to do is I want to just copy this line and paste it in up above there. And I'm going to comment that out actually with a semicolon. And so I'm going to just like copy and then paste here. That way I have the original just for reference in case I want to refer to it quickly. And then I'm just going to take out file system because I don't want everything in here. It's a little too crowded for me, too busy. So pulse audio would be the first thing on the list. And then keyboard is okay, I guess, the language thing. Memory, I could probably ditch that. Maybe I'll keep CPU and I'll take off the IP address too. So that kind of frees up some real estate, and to me that looks a little less cluttered. You can really pick and choose whatever you want to put on here, and it's really flexible. When you click on the date there, you can see that the clock changes to an actual date with the time as well. So very nice. Some of the default things. Back in our config file here for our i3, now that we got our Polybar working, I'm happy about that. So if I come up here, this mod, it's setting a variable called mod, $mod, and that's the variable for mod 4. And in i3, mod 4 is the super key. By the way, if you ever want to use the Alt key in your keyboard bindings, the binding for Alt would be mod 1, I believe. So you could create a variable for mod 1. You could do like set $Alt mod 1, and that would allow you to use the Alt key in your bindings here. And so here you got a binding like mod shift Q to close a window. I'm just going to take out the shift because I'm more comfortable with mod Q. So to kill a window, I just want to hit super Q to close something. So I changed that there and just press Control S to save it, and then Control Shift C to reload it. You always want to do that to make sure before you test your changes, otherwise it won't work. And of course we got our different things here. We got Mod Shift C. This is where it's all designated, and Mod Shift R to restart the session. But Mod Shift C will reload this config file. And then if you want to log out, it would be Mod Shift E. And so that would bring up a nag bar up there at the top on your Polybar and ask you if you really want to exit. And then you can click yes. Now, if for some reason you don't want to have the nag bar there and you just want to go straight to logging out, then just delete all of that except the end of the line there where it says i3-msg exit. If you just leave that by itself and then just delete the rest of it before that, then you'll go straight to the log out without the nag bar. So yeah, that's a matter of taste. I just left it in there. And there's also ways where you can just directly reboot and shut down and so forth as well. But that could be another story. And then here we got a reference to our D menu, which is Super D. And I'm going to add Firefox in here. And I'm going to label this section My Apps. And then I'm going to start off with Firefox. So I'm going to do another hashtag here and just put a little comment for web browser. So hashtag web browser. And I want to launch that with Super B, I think. B for browser. That's typically what I use. So bind sim, $mod, that's a super key, plus B. And now I want this to open up in Workspace 2 as well. So in order to do that, first of all, I got to tell it to switch over to Workspace 2. So I want to do i3-msg, and then in quotes, type in Workspace, and then the variable for Workspace 2 would be $WS2, and then end quote. And then that'll switch it over to Workspace 2. And then I want to do a semicolon and then do another exec, which is exec Firefox. So that's going to actually launch Firefox after it switches over to Workspace 2. Now I'm going to assign a window rule, assign class equals, and then in quotes Firefox, and then close the bracket. And what that does is that tells i3 that when you open up an application, if the class name of that application is Firefox, then open it in Workspace 2, which I just typed here as $WS2. So it's going to open any application in Workspace 2. And I got an error message. How come? i3-msg. Okay, something right near that line there. And, oh yeah. I forgot to type in exec here. So we got to execute that. So exec that, because we have two exec commands here in the same line. So I'm just going to save that, Super Shift C to reload the config file. And it's not complaining, so that's good. So if I hit Super B, it did it. It switched over to Workspace 2. And then it loaded Firefox in Workspace 2 according to our window rule that we typed on the third line. Nice. So that all worked. I'm happy to see that. Excellent. So we're getting there. All right. So that's how simple it is to do key bindings. And I like certain apps that open in certain spaces. That's why I donated 2 for this. Xprop I just typed, and if we come over here and click on it up near the top of the window, you can see we got our WM class in here. So it gives you all the information on the application that's open. In this case, it's Firefox. And here's where we get our application name. So if you have a specific application that you want to open on a specific workspace and you don't know what the class name is, that's how you find it. Use Xprop in a console, and then that's where you can get the name. And in this case, it would be Firefox. And I already knew the class name for Firefox, and so I didn't have to do that, but I wanted to show you how to get the class name in case you need to have it for a specific app. And so Xprop is the way to go. Nice. So I'm going to close this error message here real quick. And that takes care of Firefox. And I think I'm going to do the same thing with Thunar, except I'm not going to assign Thunar to a specific space. I'm just going to open it, let it open wherever I happen to be. So let's do a bind sim mod T for super T for Thunar, exec Thunar. And I don't want that commented out though. I'm going to put that on the other line. And then what I'm going to have commented is Thunar. So I know what this is referring to, even though it's kind of obvious anyway. And then Control S and then Super Shift C. And now hitting Super T opened up Thunar, just like that. So the key binding's working fine there. Didn't get any error messages. So I'm just hit Super 3 to go to our third workspace. And I would just want to open a console, but I must have hit that twice. So there we go. Close one of them. And then let's just zoom in here. And I'm going to do a sudo apt install nitrogen because I want to set up a wallpaper because it looks kind of blah with a black background. So let's just install this, let it do its thing, and then we'll load in some wallpaper. Nice. Excellent. So that was easy. So Super D again to bring up our D menu. And I'm going to type in nitrogen and open up our nitrogen app. And so we can see that's open. And I'm going to come over here to preferences. And then I'm going to hit my add key button. And I'm going to go into file system because we should have some backgrounds in here in Mint. So I'm going to go to the USR folder and then go into share right there. And then there should be a folder called backgrounds, I believe. And right there, yeah. And we can see Linux Mint Wilma. So that's the latest one. I'm going to load that folder in. Going to hit unlock or whatever it said. And there we go. So we got some cool wallpapers in there. That one looks kind of nice. Let's see what that looks like. Looks like in the style of an oil painting or something. I guess I should hit apply though. That works better. Excellent. So now if I go to workspace 3, Super 3, that looks beautiful, except it's not taking up the whole screen. I could stretch it, I guess, but then the proportion wouldn't be so great. How about this one? So let's hit apply and see if the resolution is better on that. Takes up the whole screen. That's better, yes. I'll take it. Cool. So that's a beautiful background, and it happens to be 1920 by 1080 at least, so that's good. And so now we got a background, but now I want that background to load every time we start up our PC. So I'm going to go in here and then I'm going to look for a good space to just stick that in. I guess this is as good as any. Oh, there's our, I want to turn off that screen locking. So I'm just going to put a hashtag in front of that and comment it out. Because for me, that's kind of annoying. So just going to turn that off. And then I'll just, I guess right here is a good spot. I'll just squeeze in here. And then I'm going to do an exec always for nitrogen. So exec underscore always. And then nitrogen. And then a double hyphen. And then restore, I believe is what the thing would be. That'll restore the previous background that we had set. I'm also going to put in here no startup ID, no dash startup dash ID. Because this is an app that's not really running in an open window. And exec always again, we just want it to execute once. So that will take care of that. And then every time we restart our computer or come in fresh to a new session, we'll have the same background. Nice. And of course, anytime we want to change it, well, all we got to do is open up nitrogen and we're good. So what do I want to do next? I kind of like to put a click feature on that, but I also want to like improve our D menu situation too. But here's the variable that sets a mod and assigns it to mod 4, which is the i3 designation for your super key. And like I was saying, mod 1, I believe, is your alt key. So if you wanted to make an alt variable, you could set $ALT for alt if you wanted to, that, or anything you want really. And then space mod 1. And that would give you your alt. In case you wanted to do like, I don't know, super alt P to launch something. But just a little FYI. So here, back to our D menu here. This is the command. It does D menu run when you want to run your D menu. And it's very basic, but Rofi I think is better. And so I'd like to run Rofi using the super D instead. And it gives you an example down here, like the Rofi and drun, show drun command. So if I copied that and just pasted that into a terminal here or a console, then you could see Rofi run just by running it directly here in a console. And if I hit enter, it's not found. I got to install Rofi, so I'm doing it right now. Sudo apt install Rofi. I forgot that wasn't installed by default. So we'll just let that install, and that'll only take a second because terminals are fast. And I just did it again. I meant to hit the up arrow key twice to go back to our command. So now when we run the command, Rofi opens right up. So if I wanted to, I could just assign that to a key binding like super D, but I'm going to take it a step farther because as cool as Rofi is, there's some great theming that we can actually attach to this. But just to show you that Rofi's working, I clicked on LibreOffice here, Calc, and so it's going to open up Calc. It is working. So, you know, Rofi is a nice handy way to launch something from a menu. And even by itself in its original state, unthemed, it looks good. I just hit Super Shift 3 to move it over to Workspace 3. And then I hit Super 3 to get there, to follow it. So nice. But let's take Rofi to the next level, shall we? I just hit Super B here to open up Firefox, and I'm going to go out to a GitHub site, and the link is in the description below as well, but we want to go to github.com/ and then I think the address is AD1090X/ Rofi /tree/master, I think. We'll find out. And my internet went out there for about a couple minutes, but it came back on, and so now I'm back on. Yay! But here, anyways, here's the Rofi page. And so here at the Rofi page, this is a really well done page, by the way. Real big kudos to the developer here. This guy is just out of the ballpark cool. So here we got previews. And so we can see what our different Rofi styles look like here. And so it's really nice to go take a look at it. And this is style 2. And this is kind of close to what I'm thinking about maybe running as far as a Rofi style. Something that's kind of full screen. Actually, this one's even better because you got the transparent background. So I might kind of go with like style 2 or 3 there on type 3. So I'm going to remember type 3 and style 2. But you can see all kinds of these styles are really nice too. So you can pick anything in here that suits your taste. And you'll kind of know what I mean here in a second. But I'm just running through these styles real quick just so you can get a quick eyeball on what they look like. And that one kind of resembles Deepen a little bit, that menu there. Cool. And then of course down here it gives you a lot of information on how to change your theme. It's got your power menu is also available, which are nice. So you could actually embed a power menu launcher into your Polybar. And then when you click on it, it'll give you like a menu. And these are all the different styles, type 1, type 2. Type 1 is kind of more the style of menu you would expect off of a bar, I guess. But many different styles here to choose from for everybody's taste. Wow. So power menus are cool. And then of course down here, it kind of tells you how you can put it in your path. And there's many situations, but I'm going to show you an easy way to integrate it into a key binding. And then of course it's got the i3WM, but it also showed you the module there to put it in your config ini for your Polybar if you want to have a launcher on your Polybar. So this site is a real gold mine for if you want to trick out Rofi. But I'm going to go with the style 2 and under type 3. And so type 3 is what I want to remember, but we'll get to that in a minute. First of all, we got to get it on our system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll up here to the top, and I want to get our GitHub link here because we're going to do a git clone. So if I come up here to the green code button and just hit this little copy icon, that'll copy that address for me. Then I can go back into my console, and I think I'll just launch it from here maybe. So I'm going to do Super T and then zoom in a bit. And so I'm going to do git because I'm not sure if it's installed, and it's not. So sudo nella install. I didn't think it was installed, so. And then I'll just type my password, and we'll just let it get installed real quick. That's what my cousin Zeke's always telling me when I come over to visit. Git. So now let's do a git clone, and then I'm going to do Control-Shift-V to paste that in because I had copied it, but I'll copy it again for good measure. Then Super Shift V, we'll copy it into the console. Super Shift V, Control Shift V, not Super Shift V. No wonder it didn't work. I'm getting it mixed up. So there we go. Control Shift V, and then that'll paste the address in there. So now we git cloned it, and what it did was it created a folder called Rofi in my home folder. So if I switch over to that folder, CD, which is change directory, Rofi, now I'm in the Rofi directory, and if I do an ls to list, we can see our different files in here, and I'm going to do chmod +x. That'll make our setup.sh executable. So do that. And oh, by the way, that's in the instructions here. If we go down here on the website, I probably should have scrolled down here, but cd rofi and then chmod your setup sh file. And then all we got to do is just run the sh file. So we just do /setup.sh, hit enter, and it installed. So that's all there is to it. Now the Rofi theming stuff is installed. So I backed out of this directory, and now I want to change directory. Actually, let's do that from the file manager because it's easier to follow. So I'm just going to go up here a level, and then back in our .config folder, I'm going to go into i3, and I'm going to open up our config file here because we're going to want to refer to this here in a little bit. And I'm going to scroll down to the area where it references our D menu and our Rofi and all that, which is right here. We're going to change this here. Instead of just calling the D menu or the Rofi, I'm just going to delete that. And so for our mod D, I'm going to just copy this. This is the path to where our Rofi is installed, and we want to call out to our launcher.sh file. So I'm going to just paste that in real quick and zoom it in a little bit too. So let's paste that in. And so here type -x, that should be a number. So if I go out to the Rofi/launchers area, we want to use type 3. And so that x would actually be a 3. So if I go back over here, I would change x to 3. So just highlight that, press 3. So now it's launchers/type 3. And we'll see the name of that folder here when I pop over in that area. But if I do Super D now, it brings up the Rofi and it's themed out. Nice. But it's using a different style, something by default. So if I go up here and then in the .config file, there should be a folder called Rofi, and there it is. And then the other folder is what? Launchers, and then type 3. So back over here, I'll go inside launchers, and then there's a folder called type 3, and here's our launcher.sh, and you can see all our different style RASI files. So if I do this, open with text editor, I'm in my launchers.sh, and here you can see the command where it's pointing to type 3, and by default it's going to style 10. On the preview on the web page, style 2 was the one I liked, so just hit that, Control S to save. Now Super D, and there it is. Our style has changed, and that's really beautiful. The background's not transparent, and I think that's because my video settings in my VM are probably not correct. I'm pretty sure. So I'm just opened up my style 2 RASI file. And if we scroll down here, you can see our transparency is set to real, which is on. Background is black at 10%, which means it should be almost completely transparent. On my computer, actually, I have this moved up to 80%. Because that way I get just a little bit of transparency, but not too much. 10% is too low in my opinion. So I would definitely change that to 80%. And on real hardware, it would look like, not look like that because that's dark. But on real hardware, if you have that at 80%, it would look more like this. And you can see some transparency in the background. So that's 80% on real hardware. So this is like a screenshot or this is like a little insert there, an edit from my actual live. So that's what it looks like. And that's how you would just adjust the transparency in your style there, your RASI file. Now back over to modules, the pulse audio. This is what I was talking about earlier, hinting at. I want to be able to click on that volume control, right click on it and open up the PAVU control for your volume settings. So I'm going to come down here to pulse audio and I'm going to add in another command here. So I'm going to type in click right, click hyphen right equals, and then PAVU control. And that should open up our volume control settings. So I just pressed Control S to save it. Now I'm going to right click and there it is. Yay! So now I have easy access to my volume control settings. All I have to do is go up there and right click on it and then it opens up. Of course, you can set that to a left click too if you prefer. But I think, no, don't do that. Forget what I said because that's the mute. And I just hit Super Shift E to log out. I was babbling when I used my fingers, but here's the log out and you can actually shut down or right from there. But I just wanted to show you the log out, Super Shift E, and that was the nag screen up there that asked you if you really want to log out. So just wanted to squeeze that in there real quick. So next, I'm going to do a sudo nella install lxappearance because I want to be able to change my appearance and like go to a dark theme, maybe change the color of my folders. And this is a really easy way to do it, is to install lxappearance. So I'm going to let this install go, do its thing. And after that, Super D and LX, I typed in the search window and there's our appearance here. Here we can change our theme here in like mint dark. And so that's quite beautiful. If I hit apply and then I close Thunar because it won't refresh on the fly. So I got to close it and then reopen it. Now you can see it's in a dark theme. Wow. And it looks like it's using the Yaru icon. So if I go over to the icon theme, I can change that too. Maybe something like mint purple. That would be kind of cool. I like that. Or if you want to stay with the Yaru type thing, you could actually come down here and do like, for example, Yaru purple there and apply it there. And then of course, again, we close Thunar with Super Q and then Super T to open it back up. And now we got our purple Yaru icons. Nice. And then let's see, our color theme here. If we want and if we don't want like green for the highlighting, maybe we can go down here to mint dark purple. Purple, hit apply. And then close and open Thunar, and now we got purple highlighting. That looks better. That's a nicer match there. So I'm liking that. That makes it look prettier. And so that's an easy way to theme in i3 or most window managers. I think that's how I do it in DK as well. But so that's a nice easy trick to be able to theme in i3. So now we're looking really kind of good. I am liking this. Next thing I want to do is we're missing a Systray. I want a Systray here so I can see running applications up there. So I'm going back into my Polybar config ini file. And if in our modules right, at the end I want to put a Systray in there. And like I said, I want to have it down there at the end because all of these correspond to what you're seeing over on the right hand side. If you go down here, you can see this module called Systray, and that's what we're actually going to be calling. So I'm going to go over here and type in Systray and then Control S to save it. And there's our Systray, popped right up. Nice. You can see our updater and then our system reports, and then our network settings there. So very cool. And I might as well run that updater since I'm right there anyways. And since it's in the Systray, and it looks like that would need a reboot, but I'll just let that do its thing in the background. No big deal. It's pretty non-intrusive. I don't always run the updater from there. A lot of times I like to run it from the console because it's just sometimes more efficient to do it that way. And sometimes the GUI updater doesn't work 100%, whereas the console does. So I'm a console fan. I can't help it. So I think wow, I must have covered everything. And I got to tell you, i3 is my favorite so far, at least on Mint. I haven't tried DK yet, but here's a look. I just jumped out of my virtual real quick, and here's a look of my Polybar on my actual machine. And this is an i3 that I got running here too. And you can see my workspaces are open right now. And then over here, I added a Polybar module called pop-up calendar. And so that's kind of cool. And I modified the pop-up calendar to have two separate variables, one for the date and one for the time. That way I could color them different, and I could separately give them different fonts. I made the clock bold. So that was a modification that I actually did to the module itself because I just wanted to improve it a little bit. And that was kind of my improvement. Not that I want to pat myself on the back, but I will. And then here's a weather app that I got that I put on Polybar, and then I modified that too, and I added a YAD command in the config ini module, so that way when I click on it, it'll open up a YAD window with wttr.in. The Polybar weather is actually coming from openweather.org, but I wanted a YAD window with wttr.in too because I thought it was just kind of cool to be able to click on it and do that. And then I modified the volume control to have like a little slider on here to make it look prettier. So I themed it up with some colors and kind of gave it a little bit of a design there with some pipes and colons, I guess. So that was kind of fun. And then of course my Systray, but that's what my Polybar looks like in my i3 setup on Linux Mint 22, the same OS distro, I guess. So there you go. And I think I covered everything. This was kind of a crash course in i3, setting it up on Linux Mint. And with this i3, for me, it has been absolutely rock stable. Have had zero issues with it so far. It's only been a little bit over a week, but I know the last time I ran Linux Mint, I ran it for months and never had a single issue. I only switched to something else out of boredom because nothing went wrong. That's the good kind of bored. But on a production machine where I'm creating YouTube videos and so forth, I need bored. So Linux Mint really kind of fits the bill for this. And again, it's only because of OBS Studio. Even in the great OpenSUSE Linux, I've had once in a while issues crop up after an update on OBS Studio only. So I don't know what it is about OBS Studio, but yeah, it's kind of a problem child for me on anything but a very stable distro. Something Debian or Ubuntu based. And so anyway, I am really loving this. And I got to tell you, i3, I'm having a lot of fun with it. I wasn't sure I was going to be that warm to it, but I think it's right up there with DK. I mean, DK I love, and i3, I got nothing but great things to say about it. It's just something I could rant and rave about in a good way all day. So with that, all I can say is I give this a double thumbs up for a recommendation. If you want to play around with a tiling window manager and you're not sure what to mess with, well, i3 is a great choice, especially if you want to get in Linux Mint and you want to just kind of do something different with it. And I would imagine if you downloaded the Cinnamon version, it would probably work just fine as well. I wanted to go with the XFCE one because I like XFCE as an alternative desktop. But also, I just kind of felt in my gut that it might work a little nicer with i3. It seemed to me that they would play together. I don't have any real scientific data to base that on. It's just a gut feeling. So that's kind of why I went with the XFCE version. And I like that Linux Mint gives you the options of downloading, in addition to Cinnamon, XFCE, and Mate. Yes, so Mate and XFCE are nice additions that you can get by default in an ISO live version. So I like that they do that. Very cool. And again, a double thumbs up for i3/Linux Mint. And I hope you found all this helpful. And if you did, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.